Yeah, there's this space in here y'all can occupy if you'd like. Come on, mijo. There we go. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. The members of the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus, members of the Democratic Caucus as well, have joined us today. We wanted to make sure that SB 4 and the negative consequences of SB 4 stay front row and center during this special session. We have members who have filed repeal bills on SB 4 who are going to be invited up to talk to you as well. And we know about all the negative impacts of SB 4 that will likely take place after entry into force of that law on September 1st. We know that law enforcement has said that it's going to make our communities less safe. We know that there are going to be negative impacts in terms of creating fear in immigrant communities. We know that there is already fear in many of the communities that we represent. But many times these things are difficult to quantify. What we wanted to do for you today is quantify the negative impacts on business for the most part. We're already starting to see those. The Trump administration yesterday issued an emergency order for agricultural workers, increasing the size of HB2 visas for agricultural workers by 15,000, understanding that we were already having difficulty finding agricultural workers in the United States, and obviously the state of Texas bears a large burden of that, and we're seeing it as a result of the policies that have been promoted at the federal level and here at the state level, both by President Trump and by Governor Abbott, by declaring this Papers, Please bill an emergency item during the regular session. To talk to us today, we have representatives from both the Texas Association of Business and from the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Dallas, because we want to begin quantifying for you the negative impacts of this bill. So I'd like to begin by inviting Philip Jones of the Dallas Convention and Visitors Bureau to talk about how bills like SB 4 are adversely impacting business in the state of Texas. Philip, please join us. Thank you for being here today.
Well, good morning, everyone. As you may have saw yesterday, we had a big press conference on the steps of the Capitol talking about the impact of discriminatory legislation. And it's very scary for the state of Texas to think that if this legislation were to pass, what the result would be. And so we quantified it across the state of Texas. So far, just because we're talking about discriminatory legislation, such as sanctuary cities, we've lost $66 million in bookings, 38,000 room nights that have canceled as a result of passing bills like sanctuary cities. In addition to that, should a bathroom bill or other discriminatory legislation pass in Texas, we are on the hook for another $205 million that will cancel the day after a bathroom bill passes, should that happen, God forbid. And then an additional $1.1 billion is on the line. They're waiting to see what happens with discriminatory legislation in Texas before they make a final decision. So altogether, that's $1.4 billion that will immediately go away in hotel room nights and bookings for the state of Texas. That's over 500,000 room nights that will go away if this type of legislation were to pass. You need to remember that 1 in 10 trade shows in the United States are held in Texas. 10% of all trade shows booked in the United States are held in Texas, and that's also at risk. So that's why discriminatory laws like sanctuary cities and bathroom bills are so bad for the Texas economy. It will destroy the Texas brand and make it very difficult for us to overcome this type of issue for the very, very foreseeable future. So thank you. That's what I have to say. And Rafael?
Very good.
Thank you.
So we also have representatives from the Texas Association of Business here today talking about their perspective on this. We know that a lot of the attention has been on the so-called bathroom bill and the negative impact on that, but we must look at these things cumulatively. We must look at the 6 findings of intentional discrimination against the state of Texas by 3 federal courts across the state. We must look at the fact that we have a Papers, Please bill in Texas, much like we saw both through Prop 187 and Arizona's 1070. And now we are looking at a discriminatory bathroom bill. All these things, you cannot look at them in isolation. You must look at them in their totality, because that's how business looks at them. That's how business looks at them when they're looking at the Texas brand. The Texas brand has already been dinged, ladies and gentlemen. We're no longer number 1 in job creation. We're no longer number 1 in economy. The Governance magazine has ranked us 21st. And recent polls, and I can't remember exactly which one, not polls, but reports on the state of Texas now has us at number 4. Now, I'm always excited to talk about how Texas we're number 1. That chant sounds really, really good. We're number 1. I'm not excited about talking about Texas in terms of number 4. We're number 4 just doesn't sound good. We're number 21 doesn't sound good. And you must realize, and the Mexican American Legislative Caucus members behind me and Black Caucus members and others realize that business is really important. Jobs are really important to the communities that we represent, right? And so the Texas Association of Business was against the Papers, Please bill during the regular session, and they're here to talk about the negative impacts of this bill on Texas business today. So with that, I'd welcome our representatives from the Texas Association of Business. And please identify yourself for the media.
Absolutely. My name is Bob Cartwright, and I'm currently treasurer of the Texas Association of Business. And as the state's leading conservative voice, we as TAB has played a major role in our state's most challenging and important legislative, regulatory, and judicial debates over the years. In all of our legislative work, we have maintained our commitment to the values that ensure Texas' economy flourishes. When looking at legislation, TAB always looks to protect jobs and paychecks so Texans can be the best place to live, work, and raise a family. Safety of our citizens is also important, which is why TAB understands and respects the intent of SB 4, but we disagree on how wide of a net it casts. With the passage of SB 4, TAB is concerned that the economic impact and labor supply here in Texas could be reduced in industries such as construction, hospitality, and agriculture. And we just heard Philip talk about the hospitality industry in Dallas. And we rely heavily on the labor of immigrants that are undocumented. Until there is an accessible process for unskilled workers to come to the United States legally, we cannot ignore the fact that there are many undocumented people who are here working in jobs that would be unfilled otherwise. SB 4, people will seek work in other states that are more welcoming. Despite our failed federal immigration policies, immigrants that are already here are not only fulfilling critical jobs, but also contributing the immense buying power and paying taxes. Unauthorized immigrants in Texas paid $1.6 billion in state and local taxes in 2010, including $1.4 billion in sales taxes and $204.4 million in property taxes, according to data from the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy. According to the Perryman Group, if all unauthorized immigrants were removed from Texas, the state would lose $69.3 billion in economic activity, $30.8 billion in gross state product, and approximately 174 jobs, even counting for adequate market adjustment and time, according to this report. With this in mind, it's time to do the right thing in Texas, and we appreciate the opportunity to speak our mind here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Para los medios de comunicación de habla hispana también vamos a proveer comentarios en español. Obviamente la SB4 está generando ansiedad y terror en nuestra comunidad. El presidente Trump y el gobernador Abbott se han unido para atacarnos como una comunidad. Nosotros estamos aquí como miembros del grupo de legisladores hispanos en la Cámara de Diputados para abogar a favor de la comunidad hispana, para enfrentar este reto directamente, no solamente aquí en la Cámara de Diputados, pero también en las Cortes. Es negativo, no solamente para nuestra comunidad, pero para el Estado de Texas, para negocio en el Estado de Texas. Nosotros formamos como comunidad los trabajadores de este Estado, los empresarios de este Estado, y el presidente Trump y el gobernador Abbott en atacarnos nos están negando simplemente como una comunidad, aunque representamos el 40% de la población de este Estado. No podemos permitir que esto continúe. O vamos a ganar aquí, en el Capitolio, o vamos a ganar en las Cortes. Pero leyes como la SB4, leyes racistas, leyes que nos dividen, no pueden ocurrir en este Estado en el 2017. Si nos están atacando así, el presidente y el gobernador, nosotros vamos a pelearles fuertemente. All right. The last person I want to invite up is a member of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus from Fort Worth, Ramon Romero, who has filed a repeal bill, and I know that there will be other members of the other members standing behind me that will file their own repeal bills. Look, we ask the South Texas Speaker of the House from San Antonio de Bear, that will be celebrating its 500-year anniversary as a city. We ask him to bring SB 4 to the floor so we can repeal it. He knows it's not a good bill. His constituents know it's not a good bill. And we expect from the San Antonio Speaker of the House, from the South Texas Speaker of the House, that we can take action during this special session. If we're going to do something very, very productive, we need to do it. We need to do it now, and we need to send over to the Senate a repeal bill on SB 4. So with that, I'm going to invite the author of a repeal bill, Ramon Romero from Fort Worth, to come and share some ideas with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Anchia. Ramon Romero, Fort Worth, District 90. We've already seen in this country what happens when anti-discriminatory bills, anti-immigrant bills, like Prop 187 in California in 1994. We saw the exodus of people that left California for other states, namely Texas. In 2010, with SB 1070 in Arizona, Arizona saw the exodus of the working class people leave to other states, neighboring states like Nevada, New Mexico, and Texas. Why has Texas taken the lead on anti-immigrant bills, already knowing the history will repeat itself, that people will leave? And those that are here from the Texas Association of Business, I thank them for the statistics that you brought about. I, as a business owner myself, tell you the hardest thing to do is to train a new employee. So not only are people leaving, these are well-trained employees. These are some of our best employees that work in our businesses here. I've heard stories of people that have left that originally came here in the 90s from California. A landscaping company in particular in Dallas told me, we just lost 3 of our foremen. These are not undocumented people. These are people that are legal residents. And when asked why they left, they said, because we've been down this road before and we already know what it's going to be like here in Texas. And you know what that is like? The fear. The fear of living in a Latino community, like the situation that happened in my city, in Fort Worth, where Jose Ontiveros lost his life, a taco vendor that was out protecting those that were being robbed, and he lost his life because of it. And those perpetrators that took his life, when asked why did you do this? Because they're Mexican. Because they have money, and because they don't call the police. So you tell me today, Governor Abbott, Chairman or Representative Guerin, you filed SB 4. You signed SB 4 very proudly. Is the blood not on your hands? Is the blood of people like Jose Ontiveros not also on your hands? When I hear of people being rolled, many of you probably have never heard the term rolling Mexicans. We're going to go out tonight and roll us some Mexicans. What that means is we're going to go out there and beat up some of these Mexicans. I saw it all the time as a child growing up in a community that was suffering through after segregation and integration. It wasn't until it happened to my own father, until he was rolled to the point to where he was underneath a van. And guess what? It's going to happen again. So I don't only fear the fact that people are going to lose their businesses, the prices are going to go up, that home values are going to skyrocket just as they've done in other states. I fear all the people that are not going to be able to walk out of their own home to go to the convenience store. We deserve that freedom. And Governor Abbott, you took that freedom away. Thank you.
And so to close, and then we'll open it up for questions, you know, when you take and it's difficult to do, as we heard from Representative Romero, it's difficult to take the emotion out of this issue because we're so, Latinos are so much part of the Texas family. But when you take it out, why do we have undocumented people in the United States? And you ask that question, it's because actually a transnational labor market is working perfectly. You have willing employers in the United States who create the demand for labor, and you have willing workers from the developing world who are willing to meet that demand. And so that market is actually working as it should, as markets do. Now, what has not been aligned with the market is our federal policy. Our federal policy that has not created enough legal immigration to allow people, willing workers, to get matched with willing employers in a safe and rational system. And instead, it creates perversions. And one of the perversions that it creates is that states try to legislate federal immigration law, states like Texas in SB 4. And if instead, my Republican colleagues, the governor and the president, rolled up their sleeves and tried to work on creating a safe and legal system for willing workers in the abroad to be matched with willing employers in the United States, then we wouldn't have these perversions. People wouldn't be getting rolled and losing their lives. You wouldn't be creating this fear in community. You wouldn't be attacking the Hispanic community through SB4, and you wouldn't be trying to legislate at the state level immigration policy that should be fixed at the federal level. Instead, they want to have nothing to do with it. They decry amnesty anytime somebody tries to solve the program, and they attack. And unfortunately, that puts us in the position that we're in today. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we will take some questions from the media.
Question for Philip Jones. You cited some numbers, $66 million in lost bookings and $1.4 billion that will immediately go away. Bathroom bill goes into effect. Can you let us know where you're getting those numbers from?
Sure.
And if those calls have been like specifically saying if because of SB4 we're canceling and if bathroom bill goes into effect?
So we have sort of two categories. For the $66 million, that includes cancellations like the Immigration Lawyers Association in Grapevine. We just had a cancellation last week from law librarians that was meeting in San Antonio, have indicated that because of SB4 and discriminatory legislation, they'll never have another meeting in Texas until that is repealed. The bigger number comes from the bathroom bill, where they're concerned about discriminatory legislation across the board and the fact that the state would sanction and condone discriminatory legislation, and so that's where the bigger number comes in. That includes about $400 million in conventions, events that have already been booked that are on the hook for cancellation. That includes another $700 million for sporting events and at Cowboys AT&T Stadium and other NCAA Final Four and other major sporting events that will no longer come to Texas if we pass discriminatory legislation. We saw what happened in North Carolina. They repealed it for a reason. Why would we do the same thing in Texas knowing what the consequences are? Passing discriminatory legislation is bad for business, it's bad for Texas, and it needs to stop.
It is July. Where was the business community before this on this issue?
I've been on this issue since January, and other business leaders have been on this issue since January. But because of the repercussions that we've seen happening, we're seeing more and more business leaders speaking out. Just yesterday, we released a letter with the TAB and the Dallas Regional Chamber of over a dozen CEOs of major companies who employ tens of thousands of Texans saying they're opposed to discriminatory legislation at every level, and it needs to stop.
If they continue discriminatory legislation or add new, this is more for the lawmakers, if they add new discriminatory legislation in your view, are you going to do anything different than than regular session? Because it was able to pass in the last session. Are you going to do anything different in the special session, strategy-wise?
So strategy-wise, we fight here to make sure discriminatory legislation doesn't pass. If Republicans are hell-bent on being anti-business, then we're going to fight it in the courts. That's just, that is the strategy, that has been the strategy, and that's the strategy we're executing right now.
But it didn't work in the regular session.
Oh, we're in the courts right now on SB4, and I tell you what, the roster of cities and counties that have joined that litigation is historic. I have not seen anything like that in at least modern times. And so we have a very strong coalition that is fighting SB4 in the courts and will likely defeat it.
To turn to bathroom legislation and somewhat piggyback off of Phil's question, in terms of fighting that here, it will really be up to the Speaker or the committee chair how far that bill will go. What's the plan what is your plan to make sure neither of those happen?
Well, we'll see where it gets referred to. If it gets referred to international trade, then I'll have a role in fighting the bill. If it gets referred to another committee that one of our Mexican-American Legislative Caucus, Black Caucus members chairs, we're going to play an important role. The Mexican-American Legislative Caucus and Black Caucus are seen on virtually every committee in the legislature. I think on all of them, and we plan to play a role whether as chairs or members of committees, and then certainly on the House floor. Yes, ma'am.
As you mentioned before, SB4 is being fought in the courts. However, we don't know if SB6 could actually be passed. Is it already in talks that that could be also be fought in court? And if you can answer in Spanish or
Sí, lo vamos a tomar paso en paso. El primer paso en el procedimiento es aquí en el Capitolio. Nosotros intentamos enfrentar estas leyes discriminatorias como la SB6 aquí en el Capitolio. Yo creo que la vamos a frenar aquí. en la Cámara de Diputados, con el respaldo de negocios, con el respaldo de la comunidad de fe, con el respaldo de la comunidad hispana y otras comunidades unidas, yo creo que la vamos a parar en el primer paso del procedimiento, que es aquí en el Capitolio. Is he a member of the legislature? I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. You know, we don't answer hypotheticals, nor do we want to deal in hypotheticals. We are going to use every conceivable tool that we have at our disposal to stop discriminatory bills. The stakes are too high here in the state of Texas. We are united with the business community in making sure that Texas is not damaged any further by discriminatory legislation. I would say that everything is on the table, but I feel that the tools that we have in front of us will permit us to stop this.
How would you describe the atmosphere of the special session as it begins? I mean, not just like your defiant opposition here today, but also between the House and the Senate.
Well, you need only look at the very sharp criticism between the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker of the House and their differences on approaches for this session. We are comfortable with the Speaker's approach. We're going to be deliberate. We're going to prioritize the bills that need to be prioritized, both the Texas Medical Board Sunset Bill and the Maternal Mortality Task Force extension, and that's where we want to be as members of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus and Black Caucus who are behind me today. You always eat your vegetables before you get onto anything else, and what we're going to do is take care of the business of the people of Texas before we get it to any political fantasies that the Lieutenant Governor or the Governor may have. Any other questions? All right, members will be available for English and Spanish language interviews afterwards. We're grateful for you participating. Thank you to the members of the caucus and the members of the business community who have been here. Thank you.